Today's daf is Sanhedrin daf mem tes, and we are 12 lines from the bottom of daf mem ches amud beis. So we're about to learn an amud and a half Gemara that deals primarily with Yoav ben Tzeruya. So Yoav ben Tzeruya was Dovid HaMelech's chief of staff. He was the head of his army. He's obviously mentioned a lot, Shmuel Aleph, Shmuel Beis, and in the beginning of Malachim Aleph. And in order to have even a basic elementary understanding of today's daf, there's an introduction that's necessary. We'll begin with the beginning of Shmuel Beis. So Shmuel Beis begins with Dovid HaMelech receives a message. Somebody comes and notifies him that Shaul HaMelech had died. Dovid HaMelech hears that Shaul was killed in battle. He famously says, "Woe, how the mighty have fallen. Eich naflu gibayrim, eich naflu gibayrim." But at the same time, Dovid HaMelech realized that now was the opportunity for him to be able to begin his own malchus. So the pasuk says, "Vayishal David b'Hashem leimar." Dovid HaMelech turns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he says, "Ha'ele ba'achas Ari Yehuda, is now the time for me to begin my malchus." Vayomer Hashem Elav aleh. Yes. Vayomer David ono ele. Where should I go? Vayomer Chevroina. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu communicates to David HaMelech and he tells him, go to Chevron, and it's over there that you should establish your malchus. David HaMelech goes to Chevron. Of course, he was going to be there for 7.5 years. David HaMelech was king for 40 years. 7.5 years in Chevron, and the remainder in Yerushalayim and Ir David. But the pasuk says that although David HaMelech himself felt that this was his opportunity to begin his malchus, but Shaul HaMelech's camp wasn't necessarily in agreement with that. Shaul HaMelech's chief of staff was Avner ben Ner. And Avner ben Ner goes to Shaul HaMelech's son Ishboishes, and he tells him that I think you should become king. He tries putting together constituents, he gathers a campaign, and ultimately the only followers that David HaMelech was able to keep for himself were those of his own Shevet, of Shevet Yehuda. Everybody else in Klal Yisrael followed Ishboishes. They were going to continue the reign of Shaul HaMelech. And the pasuk says that obviously a civil war began to brew to the point that there was fighting. Fighting began. Pasuk says that Avner ben Ner and his people, his entourage, just so happened were traveling somewhere, and he meets, coincidentally, with Yoav ben Tzeruya and his entourage. It says it happened near a lake. They start talking leads to fighting, and a real battle breaks out, to the point that people started dying. The pasuk says that Yoav ben Tzeruya had a brother whose name was Asael, and Asael decided that now is his opportunity to kill Avner. You kill Avner, you quash the camp of Shaul HaMelech, and that's going to finally resolve all of this. So Saul starts chasing Avner, and he has him cornered. And the pasuk, in quite dramatic form, describes how Saul's about to kill Avner, and right at the last moment, Avner is able to use his skills to turn around, and he ends up killing Saul. Saul's body is lying. Yoav ben Tzeruya and his camp come running afterwards. They see, Yoav sees his brother Saul was killed. He's very, very disappointed. He starts yelling at Avner. Avner, in the meantime, had already rode off into the distance. They exchange words, and they both agree that this is not the last time that this is going to happen. The pasuk continues, and this is already Shmuel Beis Perek Gimel. Avner ben Ner comes home, and when he comes home, Ishboishes says, I need to talk to you. Everything okay? He says no. Ishboishes had a pelegish, and somebody had violated this pelegish, and he was choshed Avner ben Ner of being the one of violating this pelegish. And when Avner hears that he's being accused of something so terrible, vayichal Avner ma'oy, Avner got really angry. Al divrei Ishboishes, vayomer, and he told him, Harosh kelev anoichi? What am I, a kelev? I'm a dog? You're accusing me of committing something so terrible? And at that moment, Avner was so disappointed that he turns to Ishboishes and says, I'm done with you. Enough. I'm leaving. David HaMelech was right. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him that it's time for him to be king. You're not fit to be a Melech Yisrael. I'm going to go join the camp of David. So he sends a telegram. He sends messages to David HaMelech. Do you want to meet? I want to make peace with you. I want to join your camp. It's time for your Malchus to become the real Malchus. David HaMelech agrees, but there was one stipulation. If you remember, in the beginning of the Masechta, we learned about Michal Bas Shaul, Meirav Bas Shaul, and Michal was really married to David, but Shaul had given her to Palti ben Laish, right? The Gemara says that Palti ben Laish lived with Michal for many years, and he never did an Aveira with her. And the godless of him being able to overcome the Nisayan of not doing an Aveira with Michal was so great, it was greater than what Yosef HaTzadik did, it was greater than what Boyaz, the Sheker, Achem, Ve'evel HaYosi, Isha, Yiras, Hashem, Hitasalo is, Palti ben Laish. So David HaMelech says, here's the condition. If you can deliver Michal Bashal, my wife, back to me, then I'm agreeing to meet with you. He brings Michal Bashal back to David HaMelech. They meet. The pasuk says Avner shows up with an entourage of 20 people. They break bread together. They exchange words. The Kairos first, they agree that they are going to now work together. Avner leaves. In the meantime, Yoav ben Tzriya, who had not been present at the time of this meeting, he arrives back to David HaMelech's camp, and he was told what happened. That Avner ben Ner, the chief of staff of the other team, had come, and he just made peace with David HaMelech. When Yoav heard that, he was furious. He turns to David HaMelech and says, you trust Avner? Avner was Shaul HaMelech's chief of staff. They tried killing you for years and years and years. Look at the battle that just happened between us right now. He's fooling you. He says, David HaMelech, that's why you need me. I'm telling you, I'm looking out for you. It's a terrible, terrible mistake. In the meantime, Yoav went and reached out to Avner and told Avner, I understand, we're on the same team right now. Why don't we sit down together? Let's strategize, figure out how we're going to be able to coexist. The pasuk says the meeting took place in Chevron. They meet. It was supposed to be a friendly meeting. And in the middle of the meeting, Avner ben Ner takes out his spear. Yoav takes out his spear. He turns to Avner and he tells him, now's the time to take revenge. You killed my brother, Asael. I'm going to avenge his blood right now. And he killed him in the exact way that Avner ben Ner had killed Asael, and that was the end of Avner. When David HaMelech heard what happened to Avner, so it says, pasuk says he was horrified. Vayomer HaMelech el avodav haloi tedu kisar v'godol nofal hayoym hazeh b'Yisrael. That a great man died today, despite the fact that Avner tried killing David for years, but still he was machshav him for who he was. He was a sar v'godol b'Yisrael. And then David HaMelech said, V'noichi hayoym rachem ashuach melech. Really what I should do is, I should take revenge from Yoav ben Tzruya. And it's not clear why he didn't. The Mefarshim grapple with it. It seems like David HaMelech felt that the political situation was so fickle that had he gone now and taken revenge from Yoav, it could be everything would have fallen apart. So he said that I'm not going to do anything about this right now, but at some point in the future, we're going to have to deal with this. He put it on his bucket list. At some point, I'm going to have no choice but to deal with Yoav ben Tzruya. Now fast forward to Shmuel Beis Perek Chaf. And Shmuel Beis Perek Chaf picks up right after David HaMelech was able to quash the revolt of Avshalom. So Avshalom was David HaMelech's son. Right? Mizbar, the David bevarcha b'pnei Avshalom b'nai. Avshalom tries killing David HaMelech. Yoav ben Tzruya ends up killing Avshalom. And despite the fact that Avshalom tried killing David, the psukim that describe the divrei hesped that David HaMelech said for his son Avshalom is oyin v'noira. Some of the most moving psukim in the entire Tanakh is David HaMelech crying over the fact that his son Avshalom was lost. But right after the Avshalom revolution, there's another revolution that takes place, not nearly as well known. The pasuk says, "V'sham nikra ish Glial u'shmoi Sheva ben Bichri." There was a yid, his name was Sheva ben Bichri. Ish Yemini, he was from Shevet Binyamin. Vayiska b'shofar, he takes out a shofar, he blows. Vayomer, he says, "Ein lanu chelik b'David." We don't want to have anything to do with David HaMelech. V'lo nachlo lanu b'ven Yishai ish la'oyav Yisrael. And he begins a revolution. He is going to now revolt against David HaMelech. David HaMelech heard about it. Obviously, he wasn't happy. And the pasuk says that he called one of his officers, whose name was Amasa. Vayomer HaMelech el Amasa. He tells him, "Hazikli es ish Yehuda shleishes yom." I want in 3 days from now, you should appear in front of me, and you should be together with the people. My people that are going to go fight on my behalf. And we're going to go, and we're going to make sure that Sheva ben Bichri is not successful in his revolt. The pasuk says, "Vayelech Amasa lahazik es Yehuda." Amasa went, and all these psukim are critical for today's daf. Vayoicher min hamoed asher ya'adai. 3 days passed, and he hadn't come back. We're going to see in the Gemara today why. But 3 days had passed, he hadn't come. In the meantime, David HaMelech didn't know what to do. So he calls Yoav, and he tells Yoav, "Why don't you now go and you gather the troops? We have to kill Sheva ben Bichri. I don't want him to be successful." And it's clear in the psukim that David HaMelech was very concerned about Sheva ben Bichri. He said that he has the potential to do more than what Avshalom was going to be able to do. So the pasuk says that Yoav ben Tzruya goes out with his people, and as he goes, he sees Amasa coming. and he goes over to Amasa. Pasuk says he kisses him, and he tells him, Amasa, David HaMelech was waiting for you, and they exchange grisen, and as they're talking, the Pasuk says David HaMelech grabs on to Amasa, yoav grabs on to Amasa's beard, he takes his spear out from his other hand, and he kills Amasa. David HaMelech heard what Yoav had done to Amasa. As you could expect, again, he was very, very disturbed, and he curses Yoav. He tells Yoav that for what you have done, this is already the second time. He killed Avner ben Ner, and he killed Amasa. He gives him clothes. He says, terrible things are going to happen to your family because of what it is you did. Fast forward to the beginning of Melachim Aleph. The beginning of Melachim Aleph, David HaMelech is old, and he realizes his time is coming, and he's not going to be king forever. He wants Shlomo HaMelech to be king. But in the meantime, David HaMelech had a son, Adoniyo, and Adoniyo felt, he was older than Shlomo, he felt that he should really be the next king. And still a hate, he begins a revolt. In the meantime, David didn't want Adoniyo to be king. He wants Shlomo, and he's grooming him to be king. And he gives him a to-do list. He says, there's certain unfinished business that I was never able to do during my lifetime. And he gives him the list of things. One of them was, I want to kill Yoav ben Tzeruya. Because Yoav ben Tzeruya had killed Avner ben Ner. He had killed Amasa. He had no business killing either one of them. And not just that, I understand that he's joining the camp of Adoniyo. We have no choice. We have to kill Yoav ben Tzeruya. And right in the beginning, it's amazing. He gives him 5 or 6 things to do. Shemi ben Gera. Some of them are rather well known. Shlomo HaMelech becomes Melech, and immediately, bang, 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 he knocks out the entire to-do list. He takes care of everything that he had to do. Yoav ben Tzeruya hears what's going on. The pasuk says, "Vashmuya bad Yoav." Yoav heard about it. Ki Yoav not achrid, and Yoav achriyav shalom le'not. Vayonos Yoav Eloy Hashem. He ran to the Eloy Hashem. Vayachzik bekaran to the mizbech. He grabbed onto the mizbech. So the mizbech was like an air miklot. It was considered a sanctuary. He thought that if he would be there, he would be safe. Vayugal HaMelech Shlomo. They told Shlomo HaMelech, "Yinos Yoav Eloy Hashem. V'ine etzel HaMizbech. Vayishlach Shlomo es ben Yoav ben Yoyada lemer lech pegah boy." Shlomo HaMelech's own chief of staff. That was ben Yoav ben Yoyada. He sent him and says, "I want you to go into the oil moed, go to the mizbeach, and I want you to deal with Yoav ben Tzeruya." The pasuk says, "Vayav ben Yoav Eloy Hashem Vayoy me'ov koyamar Melech tzei." Melech said, "You have to leave." Vayoy me'loy ki poy amos. You want to kill me? You're going to kill me right here. Vayoshav ben Yoav es hamelech davalemer. So ben Yoav goes back. He tells Shlomo HaMelech, "Koy diber Yoav v'choyanani vayoy me'loy HaMelech asay kasha diber ufgaboy." Kill him there. It doesn't matter. Ufgaboy ukvartoy v'hasiroisid mechinam. And because I have command from my father, I have to take care of this. The pasuk says that he did what he had to do. Vayal ben Yoav ben Yoyada, vayifgaboy, vayimiseu, vayikover, bebeisei, vamidbar. And they buried him in his house, which was in. That is the story, in short, of Yoav ben Tzeruya, Avner ben Ner, Asael, Amasa, Ishboishes, David HaMelech, as it relates to an introduction of today's daf. So on this note, Zok to Gemara, 12 lines from the bottom. Das Memches on the base. So up to Gemara, Rav Yehuda, Rav, that if you look at the pasuk that describes the klolos that David HaMelech gave to Yoav ben Tzeruya, so Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav that kol klolos shekilo David es Yoav, all the klolos that David HaMelech cursed Yoav, niskaimu bezare shel David. They were all mekuyim bezare shel David. What were the klolos? The pasuk says he told him Yochulu al roish Yoav ve'el kol beis aviv. Al Yikaris bebeis Yoav Zov. There's going to be a Zov that's going to come from the family of Yoav. A Mitzayra is going to come from the family of Yoav. Machzik bepelach, someone that's going to have a hard time walking, is going to descend from Yoav. V'noifel b'cherev, someone that's going to be killed by a sword. V'charsar lechem, and someone that's going to starve. So those were the specific klolos that David HaMelech gives the family of Yoav. As Zok to Gemara, all these klolos were Niskayim Bezar Shel David. It says the Gemara, how do you know that Zov? Where do you find that David HaMelech had a Zov that came from his family? Rechavam. Rechavam was Shlomo HaMelech's son, which means he was David HaMelech's grandson. And the pasuk says, "V'Melech Rechavam Mesami Yisraelis b'Merkav Alonis Yerushalayim." It was difficult for him to go up to Yerushalayim. V'Ksiv, and the pasuk says, "V'Chol HaMerkav Ashir Kav Alav Yitma." So it says b'Merkava, and you find the word Merkav by a Zav. We learn from there that Rechavam was a Zav. Mitzayra, where do you find that a Mitzayra came from David HaMelech? The Uziyo. The Ksiv u'Becheskasei Gav Ali B'Yad LaHashchis. Uziyo was one of the Malchei Beis Dovid. So he was again an Einokol of Dovid HaMelech, and he was a Balgaiva, the pasuk says, to the point that even though he wasn't a kohen, Vayimal b'Hashem Elokav, Vayova yel Heichal Hashem lahakti amazbeach haktoros. He went into the Heichal and he brought the Ktoros, despite the fact that he wasn't a kohen. V'ksiv, and the pasuk says, Vatzara zorcha b'metzcha. Hashem punished him. He made him a Mitzayra. So you see that Dovid HaMelech had a Mitzayra. Machzik bepelech. Where do you find that Dovid HaMelech had an Einokol for whom it was difficult to walk? Me Asa. Asa was another one of the Malchei Beis Dovid. And the pasuk says, Rakla Isik Nusik Chala Raglav. That as he got older, Asa, that it was difficult for him to walk. That he was afflicted by the disease called Pudagra. The art scroll says gout. Who was Rav Nachman's son, once asked his father Rav Nachman, Heichidami, she described the symptoms of Pudagra. It feels like needles are going into Basar Chai. Could be he suffered from it. He himself had experience. Some say that he didn't suffer from it, but he had heard it from his Rebbe. And even others say, he knew it. Where do you find that there was a Meichel B'Cherev that came from David Melech's Mishpacha? One of the saddest portions of Nach, when Yeshio, who was a tremendous tzaddik, is killed. Right? It's one of the kinnis on Tisha B'Av, and the pasuk describes how brutally he was murdered. His body became like a sieve, so he was a neifel b'cherev. He was a descendant of David HaMelech, and that klala that he gave Yoav didn't happen in Yoav's mishpacha. It happened in his own mishpacha. And finally, Chasar Lechem, someone that was starving, Yechanya, the Melech Yechanya, the Chsiv, Varuchase, Aruchas Tamid, Nasnulai. And Rashi explains that the context over there is that Nebuchadnezzar was the one who had taken Yechanya into exile. He brought him into Golis. That was Golis Yechanya. And when he was in exile, he made Nebuchadnezzar didn't give him any food. It was only afterwards, when Nebuchadnezzar died, and his son, Evel Meroidach, became king, Evel Meroidach gave him food. And it was a chiddush, because Evel Meroidach's father, Nebuchadnezzar, did not give Yechanya food. It was only Evel Meroidach that did. So during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Yechanya was a chasar lechem. So either way, David HaMelech curses, he's Mekalo Yoav ben Tzeruya for what he did. The Klola incidentally happened after he killed Avner ben Ner. That's when he was Mekalo Yoav. He's Mekalo him. 5 Klolas, and says the Gemara, all 5 of those Klolas were Niskayan Bizarre, not Shal Yoav, Bizarre Shal Dovid. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, this is what people mean when they say, Tehei Luta, V'loi Tehei Lata. It's better to be cursed than to be the one that curses. Because if you're cursed, lavdafka, anything is going to come from the klalo. But if you're the mekalo, there's actually a better chance of the klalo playing itself out. And that's the conclusion of the very first part of this daf. Just one ha'ara. What's pshat in that? Tehei luta, v'loi tehei la'ata. So I was thinking, and I don't know, way beyond my pay grade, but it could be the pshat is very simple. It could be the pshat is because there's this idea that we talk about all the time, the law of attraction, which is that there are certain things that can only affect a person if they're worried about it. But if you don't worry about it, it can't affect you. Ayin hara, man de kapid, kapdina bein, man de loy kapid, loy kapdina bein. Right? The Gemara says that if somebody's worried about ayin hara, what should he say? Anam mizara di Yosef kasina. I come mizara shal Yosef. Fake to Marsha. How do you know you come from mizara shal Yosef? Maybe you don't come from mizara shal Yosef. So the Marsha says that that's just a nusach. It's a lachash. Doesn't mean literally Anom Mizar the Yosef Kasina. It's an incantation. The nusach of the lachash is Anom Mizar the Yosef Kasina. But the Sfarim HaKadoshim say that if a person believes that Anom Mizar the Yosef Kasina, that I'm potter from this evil eye, he doesn't have to worry about it. Right? You find it in the Gei Zugas. So this is an idea that you find many places. The Rambam regarding Katlanas, you find in many, many places. The Rambam certainly was a big believer in this, that people with their own thoughts can bring upon bad things. So if somebody curses somebody else, I don't know, you have to worry about it. If you're not expelled from the Klola, maybe it's something you don't have to worry about. But the Mekala who's cursing, he obviously is thinking about it. Right? He believes in the Klola, because if he didn't believe in the Klola, why is he being Mekala? So you know what? The Mekala has to be more concerned than the Nikla. I'll show you a Rashi. Right in the beginning of the Gemara, the Rashi says that everything that Dovid said was going to happen to Yoav ended up happening to himself. Rashi says something that I think is Sisrei Torah. Kulam neskaimu bezari shel David, zokte ilige Rashi, mipnei shekivlon shloim olav. First of all, where did Rashi get this from? It's not such a bucky enough. But Shlomo HaMelech was mekabel the klala on himself. he somehow was, it sounds like that for a klala maybe to work, you have to be makabel the klala. Shlomo Melech was makabel. He was worried about it. And the minute Shlomo Melech was worried about his father's klala, boom. That's when it ends up playing itself out. Either way, so the Gemara now is going to go into great detail, and describe some of the Parshias in Nach that we spoke about before, specifically when B'nai ben Yoyada killed Yoav. So when you read the Psukim, it sounds like B'nai ben Yoyada comes into the El Moyed, boom, he kills him. Shlomo Melech said, kill him. But really, there was a trial. Yoav ben Tzeruya was tried.